Supporting our circle, the National Tribal Clearinghouse on Sexual Assault provides resources and education to service providers to improve responses to sexual assault and empower tribal communities. Tribal Sexual Assault Response Team. Utilizing community healing has always been at the forefront of tribal values. Traditionally, if a tragedy affects an individual, the community comes together to create a support network of different roles to uplift the affected individual with support and compassion. The primary focus remains on the victim at the center of this support circle. These traditional tribal values of collaboration can be extended to addressing sexual violence in Indian country and Alaska Native villages, particularly when it comes to creating a sexual assault response team, otherwise known as a SART. Overview, purpose, and goals of a SART. A SART is a multidisciplinary interagency team formed to provide a coordinated response to sexual assault that prioritizes the care and services for the sexual assault victim while seeking to hold the sexual assault offender accountable for their actions. It is multidisciplinary in that it includes representatives from various groups within the community. Medical, like a sexual assault nurse examiner. Victim services, like a sexual assault victim advocate. Public safety, like a law enforcement officer assigned to the sex crimes unit. Criminal justice, which may be court personnel, such as a prosecutor or perhaps a judge. Other community agencies, to include representatives who may serve a sexual assault victim either directly or indirectly through nonprofit organizations or criminal justice systems such as tribal leadership, forensic labs, or traditional healers. Victim survivors. Some SARTs include survivors on their team to ensure the team remains victim-centered and trauma-informed. A tribal SART is most likely interagency because the team often includes representatives from various governments, tribal, federal, state, and possibly county governments to ensure a collaborative team approach is coordinated and working towards a comprehensive response from all relevant jurisdictions that may be involved in serving the sexual assault victim. A SART seeks to balance the needs of the survivor with the goals of criminal justice. At its core, the goals of a SART are supporting the sexual assault victim, holding offenders accountable, and increasing community safety. Additional goals may be identified by each SART, depending upon the unique needs of their community in addressing crimes of sexual violence. A tribal SART and a non-tribal SART share the same core purposes. However, there are important differences in jurisdictions, cultural context, and team structure that set them apart. Jurisdiction, tribal SART. Must navigate complex jurisdictional issues involving tribal, federal, and sometimes state law. Jurisdiction may depend on the identity of the perpetrator or the survivor, tribal member or non-tribal, as well as the location of the crime, Indian country or Alaska tribal villages. Federal agencies like the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the FBI may be involved. Non-tribal SART typically operates under a single jurisdiction, city, county, or state, with fewer overlapping authorities. Most likely only involve local law enforcement and state prosecutors. Cultural context, tribal SART. Cultural knowledge, tradition, and ceremonial healing practices are deeply integrated and placed at the forefront of operation. Often works with tight-knit communities where trust and confidentiality are prioritized. Non-tribal SART can be culturally responsive but operates from a mainstream framework. May have limited access to culturally specific healing practices. SART team structure. Tribal SART includes tribal law enforcement, Indian health services, advocates from tribal domestic violence and sexual assault programs operated by various tribal nations, and tribal courts. Non-tribal SART. Local police, local hospitals and clinics, non-tribal domestic violence and sexual assault programs. Why is a SART important to my tribal community? Barriers to reporting sexual assault in tribal communities. Privacy, blaming, safety, accessibility, jurisdiction, and trust. The development of a SART can be beneficial for tribal communities in many ways. SARTs can address many of the barriers that American Indian and Alaska Native women encounter when seeking services after a sexual assault, like privacy,
Who will know about this?
blaming,
They will say it was my fault because I was using or intoxicated.
safety,
What if he or his family comes after me?
accessibility,
I don't have money to get the help I need.
jurisdiction,
Who is supposed to investigate this?
trust.
I don't believe anyone is going to do anything about this.
SARTs as a best practice to addressing sexual assault. SARTs are considered a best practice for responding to sexual assaults and have been effective in enhancing the response and services available to sexual assault victims. SARTs are useful in identifying needed resources and broadly sharing resources available to sexual assault victims and their families. SARTs have assisted in the development of victim service programs specific to sexual assault victimization. SARTs have increased access to sexual assault training opportunities for sexual assault nurse examiners, advocates, court personnel, and law enforcement. SARTs have assisted in the development and implementation of proactive policies and protocols for responding to crimes of sexual violence. An example of this could be best practices for law enforcement in responding and interviewing victims, or a court's use of closed-circuit television for child victims. SARTs increase community safety, trust, collaboration, and culturally relevant services. SARTs help and honor victims, improve offender accountability, improve healthcare system, and make communication safe. Developing, sustaining, and strengthening a SART. If your tribal community is interested in creating a SART or strengthening your already existing SART, resources are available on the NTCSA website. Sexual assault affects not only the victim, but also the victim's family, community, and nation. For too many years, victims have suffered in silence. Most often, victims don't tell anyone what happened. In the rare instances when victims tell, they are often met with disbelief, apathy, blaming, silence, and injustice. Where there is no justice, there is no healing. Collective silence and denial have resulted in multi-generational abuse, which results in harm to the entire community. It is time to end that silence and denial. Let's uplift long-established customs of helping and traditional forms of justice that could ultimately provide collective healing. A SART is one way that your community can come together within a collective framework to change the way victims are treated. For more information about sexual assault response teams or other videos relating to enhancing the response to sexual assault, we encourage you to view our resources in the NTCSA Learning Center.